On this episode of Insight, are we having less sex and does it matter? Gail, you're 71. Last year you hired a male escort. Why?
I was approaching my 70th birthday and I was just in terror of becoming invisible, I think. And I felt like I needed a battery jump. So it came down to two options, a parachute jump or an escort. And so I chose the escort.
How long had it been since you'd been sexually intimate?
About 5 years. I stopped on the dating apps when I was 65, just dying of boredom, really.
Was it what you expected?
It was incredibly disappointing. I asked exactly for what I wanted. I wanted an erotic massage and an orgasm, and he agreed he could do that. And I spent 2.5 hours basically with something that felt like a remedial massage, and him sort of lying his head on my shoulder as if he wanted me to pat his head. So there was nothing happening, and I asked him to leave.
Did you feel like you got your money's worth?
Definitely not. It was a lot of money. And I spent the night sort of tossing and turning. I woke up the next morning and I thought, I'm going to write him a note and say how disappointed I was. And we'd made a clear transaction. I felt he hadn't delivered. And I was basically writing to say I was disappointed. Just as a PS on the bottom, I just said, would he consider a refund? And within 15 minutes, he texted me back and said, yep, it hadn't worked well, and I got a full refund.
How did it feel when you got that refund?
I felt really empowered. And for the first time probably in a lot of years sexually, I was able to say, that's not good enough.
You wrote an article about your experience. What's been the reaction?
Mixed and very big reaction. Men and women both were very supportive, and there was a very small minority of people, I have a feeling it might be men, but I'll say people, that were really demeaning and mean and cruel and basically saying things like, poor guy, what did he have to work with? You've got to be kidding. You thought you could have sex with a 48-year-old man and it would work out. It made me really determined to give it another go, which I did about, 8 months later.
To find another escort?
I found another escort, and that escort was from someone had responded to my article, and a woman had said she'd seen this escort 5 times. So I thought, that feels like a good referral. So I went to him and it went really well.
You grew up in the late 60s. What was your introduction to sex like?
Pretty mediocre. I think because we were sort of challenging all the values our parents had, I think it was sort of expected we'd have sex very early and just keep having sex with a lot of people. So I had sex with someone when I was 15, and I just had numerous partners through my teens and early 20s, fairly unsatisfactorily, I think.
So the sexual revolution didn't necessarily mean a good sex life for everyone?
We got the pill, so it meant freedom. It meant that we were free and open to do it. I think what we didn't do, though, was think about what we're doing. Or I didn't question what I wanted, or it just was something you just did as a sort of a rite of passage. And look, some of it was great, but it was thoughtless, I'd say.
Alyssa, you're 24. Growing up, what influenced your views on sex and intimacy?
I think being a teenager and a young adult from the 2010s to the 2020s kind of had a big impact on my life. Constantly being subjected to the media, it was like a big time of female empowerment and women finally getting autonomy over their bodies and saying, oh, I can go out and I can freely have sex and not feel ashamed about it. I feel like that's what kind of encouraged myself and my peers to be a bit more, I guess, open with sex. It was more normalised. So I kept going and was a part of hookup culture, casual sex, and it wasn't after a couple of years of that until I entered a serious relationship that I kind of realised, okay, is it really the sex I want, or is it that kind of deep emotional intimacy that I was lacking? And to me, it kind of opened my eyes that maybe the media has kind of shoved in our faces too much that sex isn't a unique thing and it should be a form of intimacy and a big bond between you and a partner.
COVID lockdown struck just after you finished high school. Did that stifle your sex life?
It didn't personally for me. I was lucky enough for when I turned 18, I was still able to go to the clubs. I was still able to go out and hook up when I wanted to. I think around 19 is when COVID happened for me. And by that time I had entered a serious relationship, so it wasn't really on my radar, and I got everything that I needed out of the way.
Are you still part of the hookup culture?
Not anymore, no. I am lucky enough to have found a partner, and even before that, after exploring my sexuality and discovering that sex wasn't all that I made it out to be, and so it slowly died down until I found a partner and then started having sex with my current partner, that I realised that sex to me is all about the love and the deep intimacy between one another.
Daniel, you're a clinical psychologist specialising in sexual well-being. Are you noticing a shift with young women when it comes to sex and dating?
In some way, both of these case studies are quite nice, right? Because they demonstrate experiences of autonomy, even though then the result is a little bit different. And as the lady said over there, and then I want to have as much sex as possible. And now I think autonomy, since that sex is so available, now moves into the autonomy to not have sex almost, to do it in an intentional way. And I think that idea of intentionality and purposefulness, is this a value-based decision? What is this decision even for? It's not necessarily a decision out of, I feel I need to do this for my own self-worth or to prove something to someone else, but actually because I now want to do that. So the culture changes in a way that allows autonomy to be expressed in a variety of different ways.
And what about men?
I think that for men, in some way, they also want to promote the idea of autonomy. They don't want to necessarily be the creep, right? The person who is pressuring, but that then links to feeling maybe more anxious. And in that anxiety, that may make it difficult to know, how do I actually negotiate this? The rules and the norms regarding sexuality and relationships more broadly are changing quite rapidly. If I'm not going to be perhaps the macho, dominant, perhaps aggressive man, who am I now, and where are the rules to be able to do this in a meaningful way?
Bones, you're currently single. Do you feel a sense of anxiety around sex and dating?
Probably not so much around serious dating. I'm, 37, I've got a child. I'm really happy with my life. I've also got time to go out with my mates still, like when I don't have my child. But I've definitely seen in the last 20 years just the landscape change a lot, and I think there's a lot of more awareness and wariness of the risks, both to physical risks and reputational risks, and yeah.
How does that landscape changing affect your interaction with women?
For me, I make it more like when I'm going out with my friends, my friends are my focus. It's great to make new connections with people just in a friendly way as well. Definitely be moments, I think, like, the reputational side is certainly a very new thing with social media. I think we've all seen, like, people get drunk on the power of social media platforms, especially when drinking, sound off on their exes. It's great theatre if you're not involved in it yourself. It's good gossip, it gets people going. I did have a little taste of it, not like a proper dip, but like I did feel what those people felt.
Do you mind sharing what that experience was?
Yeah, so it wasn't anything too nefarious, but it was basically a woman I'd stopped seeing casually. Late one night, got on Instagram and kind of fired off some posts, and it was like, "At my boy Bonesy, I'm about to tear you a new asshole." And it's like, he used my name in a story. It was kind of shocking to read. It was threatening. I spoke to her, like, once I saw it was up, I kind of woke up and it was there, and I explained how I thought this was a misunderstanding. She took the post down. She said it had been resolved, and she put up a photo of like a rainbow and said, "I'm all about positivity now." But yeah, it definitely kind of dipped my toes in that feeling that I see a lot of people have gone through, which is someone's writing something about me on the internet and I have no control of it. And it's something that I don't believe is true at all. And yeah, they're able to kind of post with impunity because you don't have a team of lawyers behind you to tell them to take it down. And it's like, what can you do? And yeah, you really feel that sense of panic.
You're a writer with a profile. Were you worried about your reputation being damaged?
It definitely makes me more hesitant and makes me reconsider who I want to hang out with, just based on that. But also, I think a lot of us are thinking about this just generally, like, we've all got public profiles now. Yeah, I think we're all reconsidering, like, safety concerns about who we hang out with, yeah.
Would it be fair to say then it's changed the way you approach dating and sex?
Yeah, I think definitely.
And Nathan, what was your first sexual experience like?
I would say it wasn't great, and it wasn't great because I would take the majority of the blame for it. I'm just going to sound horrible on national television, but how like intimacy could actually be pleasurable for both parties, and it wasn't just like a male-dominated or male-focused thing. I feel as if, looking back, it was not something where it was I guess, the goal wasn't for everyone to have a great time. And I think that's unfortunately just, I mean, the way I grew up with a family that didn't really speak about sex. Porn was on the computer with 6 or 7 guys around it going, oh, look at that, that's excellent. And there wasn't really much education about it at all.
How did that affect your relationships?
The initial ones, horribly. My first girlfriend, who I lost my virginity to, probably wouldn't ever talk to me again. But understandably, like at that age, I was in high school, I was in year 10, I believe. I don't even think I was old enough to grasp what I was doing wrong. It was more so, I was just like, oh, I'm having sex. Like, this is great. I can't wait to tell the boys. And that was such a horrible way to initiate or start, I guess, sexual experiences, full stop.
How long did it take you to sort of realise that that might not be the approach that you liked? Or
University. I went to an all-boys high school, which was excellent and terrible at the same time. The conversations were pretty degrading, very childlike way to look at it, but not great in terms of being able to like retain information and take information in, especially about learning about sex.
what's your sex life like now?
I would say it's fantastic, but it's for me in my own head. I think it's changed quite drastically in terms of now. I like to think I'm more knowledgeable about what I'm doing in terms of in the bedroom, physically, and in terms of with women. Again, many women might say otherwise, and that's fine. I will take that. But I also think the conversations are now far less taboo. I can ask a woman that I'm intimate with, what do you like? What do you want? The fact that the conversations on what people like and don't like in terms of intimacy have become so much clearer and so much more positive, I think, in my life.
You're actively dating. Mm-hmm. Do you ever worry about some of sort of those risks that we've heard in the room?
Yes and no. I have always thought of myself as a bit of like the larrikin. I don't approach women just like cold approaches. I don't do that. It's never been something I've been interested in, and I am scared of women most of the time. But for me, it's been mainly if I can't talk to someone about stuff that isn't like, oh my God, you look so great, or like there's no conversation to start with, or just it can be about anything. Well, I can just talk forever, and I feel like it's a blessing and a curse. But in terms of sexual intimacy and relationships, it's been a massive blessing. So I'm very lucky.
Do you feel like the Me Too movement shifted things for men?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd never heard conversations about consent before Me Too. And then, of course, Rose McGowan coming out and saying, like, Harvey Weinstein was a monster. It suddenly opened up conversations with men who were always like, hee, sex, like, we don't talk about it, to suddenly the boys were like, oh, like, how do you talk to women about being intimate? Like, how do you talk to them about starting to be sexually active? The conversations kind of step out of the shadows because suddenly everyone was scared of getting portrayed or, I guess, accused of doing something horrible, or there's like a line that cannot be crossed. It became far more open and honest in terms of the conversations that I was hearing other men saying that they're having with women. Again, it's all like hearsay because you're never present in the room, but you always hope that the conversations that like the guys are saying to you are actually happening when they're in their intimate moments as well.
We visited Aston, who's been single for 2 years.
My dating life is essentially non-existent at the moment. I don't think that sex is really on the horizon for me. My ASD diagnosis doesn't help. I'm Aston, I'm 24 years old. For fun, I like to solve Rubik's Cubes competitively. I've been doing that for nearly 10 years now. Solving cubes nowhere near as difficult as people make it out to be. I could probably teach anyone in a couple of hours. The way my mind approaches problems works a lot better with things like cubing and puzzles, whereas in the dating world, you don't really have any actionable steps that you can continue making. It's a lot of random chance. I had one long-term relationship from when I was 17 to 22. I've not had any sexual contact since the breakup. I've had a couple of dates here and there that I've found on dating apps. Sex has never really been something that has seemed feasible in any of these dates. They've all said, I don't feel chemistry, I don't see a future. I can have 3 dates in 2 years from dating apps, but that's better than 0 from meeting people in person. Everyone's just so busy, wearing headphones in their own little bubble. I know what women deal with from men in public, and I don't want to contribute to that. I have made people uncomfortable by saying fairly innocuous compliments, and it's not fun. There are a couple of smaller dating events that have been put on, especially post-COVID. I think they've increased. I've been to a couple of them. It's kind of just a normal bar night where you can guarantee everyone's single, but you certainly can't guarantee that they want to talk to you. It usually starts out with me sitting on my own, having an early drink, and if anyone comes up to me, that's great. If they don't, I'll have my drink and I'll go home. Intimacy is something that I miss and I look back on fondly in my past relationship.
Daniel, what are your thoughts when you hear younger people like Aston describe how hard it is to form intimate relationships?
It's complex because there's clearly many factors at play there. I mean, there's perhaps individual factors, but there's a fundamental shift in the way that we are engaging with people, right? The digital world is sometimes the predominant world in which we live in. And so then being able to translate the way in which we may engage with in a digital world to the real world is sometimes not always an easy transition, particularly perhaps for now a generation that has grown up online, and that is perhaps a stronger skill set for people. But to translate that, it's not a perfect translation, and we have to be able to then deal with the inevitability of rejection or conflict or things just not quite adding up in the same way as we think it should or it can, or we can't just jump on and ask AI, what does that mean? Right, we actually have to negotiate that, and that's not always a simple thing for people who perhaps are already more likely to find that difficult.
If dating does feel more uncertain, more risky, what might be the consequences of that?
We don't really go out and risk the rejection, and therefore completely avoid that and perhaps retreat into the familiarity of maybe the digital world, which is controllable, is programmable, is seen to be a little bit easier.
We're seeing the term sex recession a lot in the media. What is going on? Are we having less sex?
The framing of sex recession, I feel, is very interesting in and of itself, right? Because the idea of recession feels like it's deprivation of something that's terrible and bad. If you're asking me, are we having less sex from a frequency perspective, I think the answer is yes. I think the broad international trends clearly say that that is true, disproportionately affecting young people. I don't think it's universally a bad thing, though. I think there are perhaps certain determinants that are probably means that this is a good thing or a useful thing to have happened.
In what way?
So the biggest determinant of how frequently you're going to have sex is being in a relationship. People in relationships have far more sex than people who are not in relationships. But we're seeing a proportion of people and younger people being single for much longer periods of time and staying single for longer over their life course. So that just means then you're probably just not going to have as much sex in general. There are also some positive factors, such as, again, for young people in particular, they're not drinking as much, they value health more. But certainly there are also more problematic determinants as well. I think the rise of broad mental health issues, the feeling of anxiety, of low mood, etc., definitely impacts that. The sheer amount of medications that are then being prescribed definitely has a very real impact on your capacity to want to have sex or your ability to have sex. We're seeing again the retreat into the digital world, and I think that while a contentious issue, and I don't know if we fully have all the evidence to suggest that is the one, I think the trends demonstrate that that probably is going to be a factor into it as well.
Is this something that's only affecting Gen Z or young people, or are we seeing it across the board?
Yes, I think we are seeing it across the board, but it's disproportionately affecting younger generations. But we are seeing broadly, comparatively, reductions overall.
Ramsey, we've been hearing how complicated and uncertain dating can feel for some young men.
Yeah.
Are you experiencing a sex recession?
Not necessarily for me. I guess in the gay community, sex is quite accessible and easy for us to achieve. We have so many apps. It's a tight-knit community. Everyone kind of knows everybody. So if you want to have sex, you could literally just go on your phone and message someone and say, hey, do you want to do it? And 9 times out of 10, it'll happen.
Does it make it simpler for you?
It makes it simpler, transactional, and become quite a routine, because then you kind of get over it and then it kind of becomes sad. But it does make it, quite easier and stuff like that.
So that transactional nature, how does that make you feel in general?
In the beginning, it feels great because you do it, you get it over and done with, and you're done. You can go to bed, you can go hang out with your mates, and then it kind of become a thing of like, not to get too graphic, but like masturbation, where you jack off and then you do it and then you move on. But then the more you do it, it becomes more of a mental thing. It becomes quite sad in a way, or like empty. So then you kind of feel like you're just a piece of meat. And then you kind of feel that the way I look or the way I perform is what I'm measured against. And then when you go out to clubs and bars in the gay community as well, I don't know if other people feel this way, but a lot of the times you kind of think, I'm going to be measured on the way I'm looking, and then I'm going to be measured on the way on what I can provide sexually, and then furthermore, I'm going to be measured on the preference that I am in terms of, do I give, do I receive? So when you're in this kind of world, especially in Sydney, you're categorised into what factor of sex do you fall into, and then you kind of perform to that because it's what the community sees you as. It's strange.
Janae, is sex a priority in your life?
I would not say that sex is a priority in my life at all. I have spent a long time focusing on other things like my career and studies and my own mental health and friends, that sex and relationships has not been a priority recently at all.
Where do you get that sense of intimacy from?
I have been very much a part of a community and friendship group of people that are so open-minded and so queer and non-monogamous and expressive in different ways that we will all cuddle one another, we will all hold hands, we will all show each other so much love in different kinds of ways and physical intimacy in different kind of ways that I actually don't feel like I'm missing out on that sexual intimacy aspect that much at all.
What's been your experience with sexual relationships?
I have been with men, I have been with women, I have been in monogamous relationships, I have been in non-monogamous relationships. I've never really cared too much to put myself into a box or a category in terms of my sexuality or my relationship orientation.
And in terms of that sort of open approach to relationships and intimacy, do you think it's a generational difference?
Definitely, I think there's a generational difference. I think social norms in general have changed so much, and I think they will continue to shift and change. And there are certain things that sometimes it might just be easier to not talk about it with older generations.
David, you're here with your partner Leanne. You're empty nesters and you're both very much enjoying retirement. Why?
I wake up in the morning next to someone, I open my eyes and there's someone who loves me, who I trust, and we appreciate one another.
Given that there's no kids in the house, how's that been for your sex life?
It's extraordinary. It's like every time, it's just the best sex ever, every time. And imagine a house or a building you're quite familiar with, you've been there, and it's still on the ground floor, and then suddenly someone says, let's go upstairs, and you go, what? There's more? And, and then, yeah, and then there's another level, and another, and it just keeps getting better and better.
Did you think you'd be like this at this stage of your life?
Honestly, no. I'm not sure I had a clear idea of what I'd be at this stage of my life.
We've heard younger people saying that they're stepping away from casual sex. What do you make of that?
I think it's a good idea. I think it messes with your head. The intimate connection is more than the mechanics and the physicality of it, somehow.
Did you have a sort of experience of that emptiness that we've heard in the room?
The year before I met Leanne, I was on dating apps, and in that year, I had more sexual partners than I had in my entire life. At the end of that year, I was emotionally shredded, I was sad, lonely, and I certainly wasn't waking up next to someone who loved me.
How is it different now?
It's different now because we're open and honest with one another. We share so much in our lives. We've been holidaying together, camping together, on cruises. She's my best friend. It's great.
You both have children and grandchildren. Are they going to be watching the show?
I'm not sure, but...
We'll say that after we watch it.
Nicole, you and your husband Aaron have been together for more than a decade. You have 4 kids between you.
Yes.
Are they living at home?
Yes, all 4.
What's the range of ages we're talking about here?
I have a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old from a previous relationship, and together we have a 3-year-old and a 19-month-old.
What does that mean for your sex life?
For a while it was what sex life? Because, 6 of us crammed in one house, and we had one baby in with Aaron and one baby in with me, and if we managed to sneak out, it was then, well, where are we going to have sex? Even if we had the time or the energy, so...
You said it was like that for a while.
Yes.
What's it like now?
We've sort of regressed a little bit to our teenage years, and we're now sneaking around to hide our sex from our children.
All 4 of them?
All 4 of them, yeah.
So what does the sneaking around look like? Where do you go?
Garage is a firm favourite. The laundry. The children will never find us in either of those places. We've had to get, creative.
Aaron, with all this sneaking around, have you ever been caught out?
Not directly. We've heard, well, this was a number of years ago now, but the now 20-year-old sent us a text message, I believe it was, telling us we needed to keep it down a little bit.
Oh, really?
We offered to buy headphones, and that just kind of made things worse.
Why is that?
Who wants to hear, hey, you really need to put your headphones on? It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I would have clawed my ears off myself if my parents had done that.
Nicole, is it just the kids that get in the way?
There's just so much now because we both work. I travel around the city a lot for my work. It's childcare, it's our parents, and I still have grandparents who are alive. And so there's so much more happening now in life than there was before, I feel.
So how do you find time for sex?
We flirt. We actively flirt now. It's text messages and then a quick message of, you look really hot right now. And it just it keeps it light and it keeps it fun, but it also keeps it relevant.
So you make the effort?
Yeah.
Do you kind of schedule or not?
We did for a little bit because there was this golden 15 minutes between Aaron getting home from work and having to go and pick up the children that I also happened to be home from work. Went, okay, Wednesdays, that's when it happens. But then reliably life happened.
Yeah.
So scheduling just didn't work. It had to become spontaneous. Yeah.
Aaron, does it ever feel like it's too much hassle to try and make it work?
For a period, it definitely did. Nicole had back-to-back terrible pregnancies, ended up with a line and basically life support, all that sort of fun gear. I was very much in my own head, between horrible pregnancy and everything. Me going, well, I don't want to be the one going, hey, what about it? And Nicole being like cooking dinner and kids, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I don't feel like it. That's absolutely going to do your head in.
In that 14-month time, how did it feel when you were living together?
Ended up feeling like housemates rather than partners. Like, obviously, you pay the bills, you look after the kids, the happy face stays on, but it very much just felt like housemates. There was a little bit on that side that needed a certain itch needed to be scratched, and yeah, that reconnection definitely helped it along, and the flirting happened, and yeah, it just became a bit more organic.
Mm-hmm. Tess, you and your partner Craig met when you were both 18. What were those early days like?
Oh, so exciting. I thought he was a very exotic man when I met him. He had an Australian accent.
You were friends at first.
Yes.
It progressed then after that. How long was it before you got sort of intimate sexually?
Yes, so 18. I think Craig got his birthday gift at 21.
Did it feel exciting?
Yes, it was wonderful.
What happened after you had children?
2 of them arrived within 4 years of one another. I just lost interest. My relationship to sex changed at that time, and it became hard work. After all, I'm a married woman, I'm a wife, and sex is there to please my husband. That's what it felt like for me at the time.
How long did that go on for?
Well, 57 now. Things changed 2 years ago, so that was decades of less and less sex and less intimacy, just not feeling like it.
How did you feel sort of inside?
I felt broken. I thought something was broken inside of me. I lived with this incredible feeling of shame. For me, the only time that I felt like I could actually get in the mood was with a glass of wine. And that feels like guilt afterwards, and it's shameful. And every time Craig would come up and say, do you want to have a glass of wine tonight? I'd know, oh, okay, I'm going to have to perform tonight. I'm going to have sex tonight.
Craig, what was that like for you?
I think you kind of grow up without education and you kind of think, well, isn't this supposed to be what this is about, being married? And what have I done wrong? Doesn't she like me anymore? And I think there's a real guilt and questioning of your own ability and, you know, what can I do to fix? You know, guys fix everything, or we try to at least. But what do we need to do to fix this?
How did this impact your relationship?
Well, you know, we've said already, you kind of end up being roommates living together, transporting kids to sport and back, and off to work early in the morning, and life just fills up the gap. And you fill it with either career or work or cameras or photographs or other things, and eventually, suddenly life passes you by and you're 57, realising, you know, what's happened.
Tess, was that similar to how you felt it was going?
Yeah, it was just a really tough time. The whole situation for us felt really tense.
Did it test your marriage?
Early 30s was a point for us where things came to a point where it could have gone the other way. I could have packed up and left with the kids back to South Africa, and we decided in that moment, this is a sliding doors moment for us. We've got to make big decisions, and we chose our family. So after that, things were pretty difficult to patch up. Even though we chose to make that decision, it was difficult to live that decision, to stay together.
Christy, you were married for 3 years. Can you relate to Tess and Craig's experience?
Oh yeah, definitely. But I don't know what the ins and outs of their marriage was. However, mine was quite turbulent from the get-go. I moved overseas to be with someone and I sacrificed my whole life for this person. Left everyone I love, everything safe and comfortable to me. And just the issues started quite immediately. And that made me not want to be intimate with my partner because I was just like so upset and resentful all the time, and it felt like housemates.
Yeah. You then re-entered the dating world when you were in your mid-30s. What were you looking for?
I don't know what I wasn't looking for something too serious yet, but I was putting myself out there for possible connection, maybe a fling, I don't know. I wanted to feel like someone was attracted to me again.
And what was it like?
Disappointing. There's a lack of romance. I don't know if men, I don't want to generalise, but it feels like they've given up on romance. There's no like courting, like take you out for dinner, compliments make you feel beautiful. It was kind of like all they wanted was sex. And no, it was kind of like a, how honest should I be here? Kind of like 2 minutes and they're done. You know, and I'm left unsatisfied. And what did I get out of the experience? They didn't care about me being satisfied, having an orgasm. Actually, all I got from it was a UTI and bad pH balance.
After that experience, what did you decide to do?
I just decided I want to retract and not sleep with anyone anymore because I decided to protect my peace, my energy, and my pH balance.
So basically become celibate.
Yeah, and it's not intentional like, oh, you know, it's some religious thing. I'm not religious. It wasn't like I'm being celibate. It's that I'm not going to just sleep with someone and be disappointed again because I feel like I'm just going to get disappointed again.
Nathan, do you think there are different expectations of men and women?
Yes, yeah, massively. Like if my house high standards are you take a shower 3 times a week, and the next person's high standards is a home-cooked meal every night, or someone else's high standards is once a week we go out for like a movie and a dinner, that should be the thing that you're looking for. And I feel like the manosphere, especially coming from an education background, really has tilted that in such a, I would say, nefarious way, to the point of it just being disgusting, where the whole goal is, if a man isn't happy, you're not a man. If a man isn't making millions of dollars, you're not a man. And just by that standard, like, I'm not a high value male, and I will never, ever, ever say that I am, because the whole idea of that has changed to be this very like pervasive idea of value, where people are now valued on your bank account and valued on your brand names and that kind of stuff, or where living at home is something that most people, not most people, a lot of people at 30 are still doing, where living alone is expensive. So things like that definitely don't make sense in terms of the standards that we look at least in my opinion.
Do you think women's standards have shifted?
I think they should, and they have, absolutely. So I think for women, the standards have risen, as they should, and I think it's reached a point now where there's men who just don't look after themselves or don't push themselves for any kind of thing, and they feel like what their parents did or what they saw their parents do would be acceptable now.
Ramsey, what are standards like in the gay community?
Yeah, similar to what you were saying as well. In the gay community, it's a lot about the way, I guess, you look. You need to have like 0 body hair, you need to have a great haircut, you also need to have money in your account as well. So all these factors come into mind, but I guess recently I've sort of just taken a step back from that and started to focus more on what I want in someone. I definitely have taken a step back to look more inward rather than external.
Have you ever taken a break from the hookup kind of culture?
Yes. After my last relationship ended about 1.5 years ago, I went into a period of just wanting to take a break from it all. And I guess that lasted about maybe a few months.
Tess, you and Craig had a sexless marriage for almost 30 years. Once your kids left home, you decided to change things up. What did you do?
Yes, so I took him for a walk on the beach and I said to him that I have heard about this making love retreat, and I said to him I would like to change our current situation. Kids are gone, house is empty, and it's just the two of us going forward. I was really very nervous talking to him about it because, you know, it's always been that elephant in the room. So we booked into a making love retreat.
How did Craig respond when you brought that up?
I think he was shocked, weren't you? I don't think he could believe that that it came from me, that this was something that I wanted to do, because I was the one who pretty much avoided sex over the years unless there was a glass of wine, and then I realised I don't like wine that much either, so...
And shocked in the sense that maybe he thought he was the one that would bring that conversation up?
Oh, Craig was immediately... He looked at me and he said yes.
Wow.
Yes, he was 100% in from the moment go.
Craig, so you were all in for this?
Yeah, and I had no idea what I was saying yes to, but I've learned pretty quickly you say yes when Tess asks you to do something. I was absolutely shocked. It wasn't something, it was the elephant in the room. It was something that we had never spoken about. We had never been taught to speak about it. We'd never grown up to speak about making love and intimacy and sex. And it was a real surprise, but I think I said yes, definitely, because I wasn't sure what we were getting into. It was a making love retreat she mentioned, so I was thinking, okay, cool, let's learn about how we can do this. We've been together 38 years. Let's make the most of the intimacy part. So, yeah, definitely keen.
You drove 3 hours to get to the retreat. What was that drive like for you both as you're heading to this unknown?
I think it was probably more like a 6-hour drive, Kumi,
Wow.
than a 3-hour. It was 3 hours, but it felt
long.
6.
And what about the drive back home after the retreat?
It was a very different drive back home.
Really?
Suddenly I realised that it wasn't about sex. It wasn't about an act. It was about being. And it was learning to be intimate with my wife again and learning not to expect and demand, but to understand what my wife had been through for 35 years after having children, and never as a male asking what that was about. And suddenly being able to spend 7 days to really spend time in our little bubble together, thinking about intimacy and what it meant for us that we'd been together since 1988.
Wow.
And it was a very, very different trip home.
Wow. 3-hour trip home that time.
And I wouldn't mind it was longer. But yeah, it was a 3-hour trip home.
Wow.
And it's been an amazing 2 years of experiencing intimacy and not sex since then.
Tess, are you proud of yourself for bringing up that tough conversation on the beach?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm so glad that I had the courage and the conviction that, number one, there's such a deep love, and we decided that our family, our love is what's needed. And, you know, what I've learned through this is probably that one doesn't need much other than love to make love.
Janae, Tess and Craig are your parents. Have you noticed a change in their relationship?
I think anyone who knows mum and dad have noticed a change in their relationship, but not just their relationship, I think also individually as well.
What's it like to see that change?
I mean, I'm sitting here crying, listening to the two of them. I think that there has just been this softness and this warmth and this openness that has come from both of them in so many different ways, and I don't think I've ever verbalised this to them, but it's radiated out of them to everyone else in their life as well, and to myself and to my brother as well. And it's also this kind of sense of hope, I think, that these long-term relationships do exist and they can be happy and they can be fruitful and they can be so full of love as well.
1 in 7 adult Australians could imagine falling in love with an AI chatbot.
Oh. When you're online, you're using 1 sense. You're maybe two. Two.
So much of that is also giving ourselves concessions where we don't have to engage with people or go to the inconvenience of getting to know somebody. Go out, go to a cafe, go to a bar, talk to people.
Millions of people around the world are ditching the traditional concept of boyfriends, girlfriends.
Human relationships have become such a hassle that so-called AI girlfriends are catching on, particularly with younger men.
What would you like us to do together?
Let's explore every touch and sensation together.
Daniel, you're a psychologist. How is technology changing the way we form sexual relationships?
For better and for worse, perhaps, right? I think there is something quite double-edged about this. Physical technology can be very useful sometimes, right? Using technology for your own sexuality can be a really positive thing. When we're thinking about digital technology, though, and things like AI, perhaps it can be more problematic. If it complements the life that you want, the sexual relationship that you want, wonderful. But if it's compensatory instead, right, we're doing it instead of forming meaningful, more typical human relationships. As we use AI to form relationships, you're never going to be wrong, right? There's going to be performative resistance, perhaps, or performative sense of, is this right or is this wrong? But really, it's always easy. It's right, and that's going to, why would you want to go out into the real world? I think most people will, right? This is my prediction, though. I think most people will, but there will be a subset of people where it just feels too overwhelming and too difficult. And so the easy pathway with all of life's other pressures are probably going to make, why not, right? Why don't I just jump online to this thing which maybe I can imagine is a real person who compliments me, or I get to compliment them, I get to love bomb them perhaps, and they say that I'm a wonderful person. I think, yeah, it's going to be hard.
Are there upsides to tech more broadly?
It can be experienced in really positive ways because it allows people to perhaps connect when they wouldn't otherwise do that. But fundamentally, if this is used in a way to, again, compensate for something that you just can't otherwise do, I think it's a problem.
Aaron, did technology play a role in how you and Nicole met?
Oh, absolutely. We met through a Facebook group.
Wow.
of all things. I was on dating apps up until that, and it was a co-worker that ended up going, Blacktown Singles group. And so I've gone on, and there was the, introduce yourself. And my absolute and utter lack of game was actually what ended up getting me to meet Nicole.
What was the lack of game we're talking about?
It was a message just saying, Hi, I see you're from Blacktown. I know Blacktown. You want to meet up?
Yeah.
That was it.
And Nicole, that was it.
Absolute, no game. Labrador man energy, just hi.
Gail, you used dating apps into your 60s. Why did you stop?
I stopped because I felt bored, I think is the best way to put it. And I got really tired of men talking about their ex-wives, their dead wives, their superannuation, their golf scores. And I just thought, there's not many fish in this pond that I'm very interested in. So that was 65 and getting to 70, and it's about connection. I think that's the key reason I actually made that call to the escort. Not so much about sex, it was about being seen. Myself as a sensual, sexual person, and it was about being seen by someone else. That wheelchair of being invisible, not just sexually, but as a person. Just having that feeling of asking for what I wanted, not getting it, and then the second time getting what I wanted. I'm not that interested in going back on dating apps. I don't need a partner right now. I'm really happy on my own. Sure, if he walked in, fine. But I'm not going to spend my time having those conversations anymore.
Are you looking to meet someone offline?
Not looking. If they walk in, that's fine. Not looking. Because I'm very happy on my own. I think one thing, it's about touch. I have real lack of touch in my life. And that was the other reason I sought out the escort and the erotic massage. But I found other ways now I can get sensual massage. And I think if I want to go back and have another sexual experience, I can go to the escort.
Janae, you're single. Are you looking for a relationship?
Not actively, no. I would never shut down a connection if it naturally started happening. But at the same time, I think that I have just put so much effort into building this life of mine that I have at the moment, and I'm pretty damn happy with how everything's going. And I think to bring someone in long term in that capacity, they would have to really add to this life that I've built for myself right now.
Christy, after your divorce and failed attempts at online dating, you chose celibacy. Did that last?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a hookup in between, and that just reminded me why I haven't been hooking up with anyone. It just was a disappointment. I guess I've learnt that I really want to get to know someone as a person and forge a connection before I dive into that again, because it is not fulfilling. If I've known someone a week or 2, 3, gone on a few days, it's not fulfilling. So I'm changing the way I do things.
Is sex something you see in your future?
Oh, of course. I mean, I'm only 40. Of course, yeah.
What would be your ideal in terms of that?
Oh, just like a connection where you just feel so intertwined with the person and it just feels good. And there's the friendship there, there's the respect, there's the passion. I don't want the mechanical feeling of going through the motions of sex. That isn't sexy, it doesn't feel good, it feels like a waste of time to me. I want to feel so connected that it just feels like this amazing experience when I'm with that person.
Do you think your age affects your dating options at all?
Definitely not, because I will say, ever since I turned 40, there are literally guys from the age of 25 to 60 that are interested. Not saying they're all interested, I'm just saying it's crazy, like just that whole broad spectrum of men that are interested in you, because, you know, I don't think I look 40, I could be 30, I could be, you know, I could be any age.
Tess and Craig, you went through a sex recession, but you reinvigorated your intimacy. How is your sex life today?
Who would like to speak here? Would you like to speak?
Well, let me start and Tess can wrap it up. When I wake up in the morning, I wake up next to my intimate partner who we've lived together for 38 years, and we see intimacy and our relationship in a very different way. It is not about a mechanical sex act for us anymore. It's about appreciating that we can come together and be together intimately, without expectation of an outcome, without expectation of doing something, but we can be together. And that being together can be regularly, as it is, and it can be any time of day. not in the laundry or garage yet.
No, no.
But yeah, we have an amazing intimate relationship.
Tess?
I never in my wildest dreams thought that that was possible, and the way that I'm feeling now is so connected to my feminine energy. We make love every day. We make love sometimes twice on Sundays. We make love when Craig comes home from work and we need to catch up. How is your day? I'll say to him, come tell me in bed, how is your day? And it's a different way of being together, truly, truly honouring in such presence. That's the sexy thing, is the presence of the man next to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to you all for being here. That's all we have time for. Thank you too for your company. Look forward to seeing you next time.